Today, I'm talking to Rob Wade, CEO of Fox Entertainment, one of the most recognizable media brands and content producers of shows such as Gordon Ramsay Kitchen Nightmares, The Masked Singer, MasterChef, Lego Masters, The Simpsons, 911, and many other scripted shows, animation studios like Bento Box that makes Bob's Burgers. And this is a fun one because I have actually known Rob since university, so that's a long time. In fact, I think I knew you when you started in media as a runner at Virgin Radio in the UK. So I'm blown away to see where he is today as the head of a global corporation and based in LA. So hello, Rob.
Hi, thank you. Wow, what an intro. Well read indeed. Yes, I'm very flattered, by the way, and for you to want to speak to me. Well, not just speak to me, but speak to me on camera. That's very flattering.
I would speak to you because we're friends, but on camera, yeah. I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think your PR department are definitely wondering why on earth you're coming on this small podcast, but I'm
They're very supportive because I refuse to do any sort of podcast usually. So they were like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, it's an old friend." So yeah, they're very supportive. They love getting me out there, so they're very supportive.
All right. Well, thank you. I thought we'd start with something easy. So you have a pretty impressive job title. I'm just wondering, what exactly you do as CEO of Fox Entertainment, and how would you tell like a 5-year-old what your job involves?
As a 5-year-old, well, I've got a few kids, so who have no interest in what I do. So I oversee I'm trying to think of words that a 5-year-old would understand. How about a 12-year-old?
So just an easy, yeah.
I run Fox Entertainment, which is a network on which you put television shows, a studio which makes the majority or at least some of those shows, and a distribution company which takes those shows and sells them around the world. And my job is to have creative oversight over those divisions, and then a strategic oversight of really what the future of the company is, reacting to what is now obviously an incredibly turbulent and fast-changing landscape. I don't know if a 5-year-old would have understood all that, but I think I was close, right?
I think that was pretty good. Yeah, it is. I mean, why don't we jump straight to that turbulent landscape? I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, I worked. I think I mentioned that I worked with companies like NBC Universal and Amazon Prime and things like that. So it's interesting thinking about streaming has really upended the industry, and now you've got AI coming in, reshaping the landscape. Where do you see the biggest shifts happening for your business? Like, what are the biggest challenges?
Yeah, well, so those who aren't sort of familiar with the media business, television and film business, really, there's been a kind of series of different disruptions throughout the decades. The most recent of those was really the internet, which allowed you to distribute your programming, obviously to anybody, anywhere. The control of those distribution outlets, like channels, like for example, Fox owns a license from the government, which is the reason we're allowed to broadcast television on a network. That obviously changed with the advent of the internet and the internet better access to the internet and faster internet. So that's why you saw, it was no sort of coincidence that it was around 2010, 2012 that you started to see the likes of Hulu and Netflix arise, is because there was technological capability and to be able to not only deliver shows across the internet, but to do that at speed. So that was the previous disruption. That's why you've seen all these changes happen in the landscape since then. And I won't go through all of them because there's too many. What's about to happen and what's happening now is the next disruption, which is the proliferation of creator content. So if you see the rise of YouTube, which has been, again, steadily happening over many, many years, but in particular in the last 2 years has accelerated, the increase in user-generated content, or at least the increase in viewing of that content. The amount of user-generated content which is watched on YouTube and other social media platforms is now greater than the amount of viewing that takes place on the broadcast networks. And the other thing that's happening simultaneously to that, those habits, if you will, of watching content like that, is that AI is coming. So what AI is going to do is it's going to democratize the ability to create that content. At the moment, there are barriers to entry in making premium content, mainly cost, right? Sometimes language, right? You can say cost, language. There's other things that make it more difficult. But what's going to happen now is whether you are a kid who lives in Singapore or or Yugoslavia, Slovenia or wherever, you will be able to create premium content using AI tools. It could be animated, it could be recreation documentary, it could be dramas, movies, series, whatever you want to do. You are going to be able to do that at a much lower cost with a much smaller footprint and tell your stories as you want to, and then distribute them as you want to. And nobody knows what the effect of that's going to be.
How does, obviously, a kind of legacy network think about this? What the challenge is with linear TV, evolving not just the habits of people watching, but also the types of content that people watch are changing. It's a huge change for someone like you, presumably. What are the things that you think about putting in place to safeguard the future?
Well, so the first things to do is to look after the current business. So I think there is, it goes back to the phrase, don't panic, right? Broadcast television is still incredibly strong. There are things about the linear business and the old business that was so good. I think what's going to come out of all of this is it's going to prove that the cable bundle was the most efficient, most profitable, most economical for consumers version of media, right? You could watch what you wanted, where you wanted it, and you had, a relatively economical, monthly cable bill to do that. Now it's obviously proliferated. The competition's massive for entertainment and sports and news rights, and that is increasing the cost for the customers. It's making it increasingly difficult to find where to go. You don't know where to watch, what to watch. And so there are all these headwinds happening at the moment. And what we have on broadcast television is still a very large and network television in particular, as opposed to cable television. If you take like linear television, it's network television and cable television. And if you take the network television portion of that is doing incredibly well because it is not a fragmented or niche service like a lot of the cable channels were. It's a broad service. We have incredibly powerful sports, NFL, MLB, IndyCar, and we have very obviously powerful station groups, which is part of our company as well, which is the local news, which is, it is obviously spread across the country. And then we have our primetime entertainment offering as well, with a lot of favorite hits. And that is still a very attractive proposition for broadcasters because although the audience share is less, the ability to reach a large group of people at a single time, it is still the best place to do that because of the live nature of the networks. So bottom line is we're still in a very, very strong position, particularly for me. as I am across Fox Entertainment, my bosses had the incredible foresight to sell the cable channels and the studio to Disney in 2019 at the height of the market. So that has left us with an incredibly powerful group of assets which focus around live sports and live news, which is why you see at the moment the Fox stock price doing incredibly well. We also have Tubi, which is an AVOD platform as well. It's not under me; it's a separate division as well. And actually, today we just launched Fox One, which is our subscription service, which carries all our content on that as well. So, I promise you I wouldn't do long answers, but that was quite a long answer. So I guess what I'm saying to you in a short way is you got to look after your business, and we're in a good place with that. And then you've got to look to the future and assess how you're strategically going to be positioned for a changing marketplace as well. So you're doing both things at the same time.
Yeah. Has it changed the kind of content that you are making to meet new consumer behaviors or desires? Like we were talking the other day that, kids don't seem to watch anything longer than, I don't know, a couple of minutes. And obviously, with the amount of kind of AI slop on social media, like I think there is a kind of veering back to live events and thinking about some of those things that can pull it apart from just the kind of like how has it impacted how you think about the kind of content you want to make?
So, at Fox, we've got a really strong brand of entertainment content. It's unforgettable. It's, we describe our characters, our lead characters as like sexy rebels. You've got the Gordon Ramsays, the Simon Cowells, House from House, these are the shows at work always are unexpected and very original. And so we have to try and remain on that. When we think of making a show, I think of, is this a Fox show? Is this something surprising? Is this something someone else could do? And if it is, then why are we doing it? Right. I think we also are a very broad family oriented network, like all networks. So we, the shows we make are supposed to be watched and co-viewed, and we have very, very high co-viewing. I think we have the best co-viewership of any network. And that, as well as a goal, is to bring entertainment that people can watch together as a family. So those are kind of like the strongest tenets of what we do. Now, I suppose what's interesting, and we try to make premium content, and premium content's proved to work. It's still incredibly popular when you get it right. I suppose what's interesting is what's happening outside of that content. And that is more where you're seeing us change and adapt to the new way of consuming. So it's very difficult to move people who from social media or direct to consumer platforms like YouTube to a network that has to be paid for. So you have to, if you want to grow your brands and your reach and your audience reach, you have to meet them where they are, which is on those platforms. And you not only have to do that, but you have to reach them in the form in which they want to consume that content. So how we take our animated shows, or particularly our new ones, because those are the ones we're trying to build brands around, how we take those animated shows or unscripted shows, and how we, cut and try and create engagement on those platforms with fandoms is something that we talk about a lot. The unfortunate piece of all of this is, you will hear a narrative which is, creators are taking over. Oh, everyone's watching social media. Oh, I don't watch TV. Fine, but just know that is a much worse place to monetize content. And that's the piece of the puzzle that has not been figured out yet. And so when you hear about all the creators like Mr. Beast or Ryan Trahan making 20, 30, 40 million bucks a year. But the majority of creators are not. They're making 100 grand a year of that, and they're having to push out videos every single day. And all they want and all they hope, think about is, how can I get like a regular job? How I can get a job that sustains and I don't have to feel like I'm literally living hand to mouth on content, because it's so hard to monetize. And the AdSense on YouTube is just not favorable for them. So I guess that's a way of me saying, we are obviously thinking incredibly hard about that piece, but it's not just about how to reach audiences, it's about also how to monetize there. So we're not moving audiences to a place where we can't monetize, right? Which again, and of course there is an element of that, because we do use that for marketing as well. So you want to market there as well, but it's becoming increasingly obvious, increasingly difficult, as I say, to move audiences directly through marketing for places they want to watch content and places you want them to watch content.
I think the idea, I mean, it's funny. I remember trying to sell in a strategy of focusing on creating and really creating flywheels for fandoms with NBC Universal, with IP, and thinking, and how do you feel fandoms? Because I think it's such an interesting thing that both media companies and brands are trying to kind of get a handle of. How do you, fuel those fandoms, marketing wise?
So I think from that perspective, I mean, this is a bigger question for my CMO, but and he thinks about this a lot. But when we think about fandoms and communities, we are trying to think of worlds that we can create around shows, which may not just include the consumption of the content, but also could lead to other beneficial financial returns. So, for example, we have obviously a very strong food brand. We have the 3 or 4 biggest food shows on networks, driven by Gordon Ramsay. So we have something called Bite of Fox, which is what we call the umbrella brand for our food business, which doesn't just, of course, the television shows, Hell's Kitchen, MasterChef, Next Level Chef, Kitchen Nightmares, all these are part of that. But really it's how we take that content, how we then monetize that content after it's been on the network, how we put products, how we bring sponsors in around that, and how we bring other creators in to benefit from that ecosystem, and then make money from that. So that's like a community. I think from a fandom point of view, which is more, I think, what you're talking about, you have to reach, obviously, communities with an authentic voice. There are incredible agencies out there who do that, who just understand how to serve content. But what we're really hoping for and looking for in all of this is engagement, and for those communities to actually fuel themselves, right? That's when you've hit the jackpot. And I think you have to provide them with pieces of content and the toolkit to be able to do that. And I think, again, this is a question for my CMO. As you can hear, it's not my area of expertise, but this is kind of how we approach it.
Yeah. I love that you have kind of thrived in an industry full of massive personalities, whether it's, all of your talent. And I'm sure a lot of the people internally too. I'm just curious if you've got any advice or thoughts on how to manage people with big egos, or creative people, idiosyncratic, characters. I'm just curious, because I feel like you must be very good at that, going through kind of producing and show running and, dealing with talent to getting to the top of a big corporation.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think I don't know if I'm really good at that. I think I have to deal with it a lot. I think when most people are angry or upset about something, it's usually fear-based. So I think you have to identify what they're scared about. And then that might not help you find a solution, but at least it gives you a, it gives you as a human kind of the ability to give them the leeway to be behaving in that way, which then helps you cope with it and react to it. So, if someone's really upset, it's like, and, or wants something very badly or is demanding something very badly, I'm not saying this has ever happened to me, but imagine you're on set and someone is furious about their dressing room and like they're saying, well, I wanted to have the white orchids, not the red orchids, or whatever it might be. Like, what's that actually about? That's not a rational thing. So you're like, well, this is a control thing. And then usually you sit down with them and you'll say, well, it was the red orchids, but also earlier my car was, and also, the script wasn't there. And then suddenly this cascade of effect happens and you get to the root issue of whatever that problem might be. I think as well, like, when you're dealing with representation, you have to understand that they are at the whim of their clients. So they will often be irrational, like, demands or whatever. And you're like, well, and you have to sort of get to a point where there's always a point where you have to draw a line in the sand, I think, as well, and say, well, this is it, and be willing to walk away. I think that's an important part of this job as well, because I think you have to be willing to do that. And if you're not willing to walk away, then just be honest, like, I just need this so badly, and then you just have to eat whatever you have to eat, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's dealing with I don't think Hollywood, I mean, you say Hollywood, but like the music industry, the media business in general is obviously full of very, very creative people. And they've got very, very passionate about their projects. And I think you have to respect that. I don't think you'd get the quality of work if they weren't passionate about the project. So you have to deal with the byproduct of that passion, I would say. But
What drew you into it way back when?
it's a great question. I don't know is the truth. I mean, I think about it sometimes, particularly when I get asked this questions like this. I was definitely as a kid, I definitely loved, and this sounds so basic, but I love watching TV. But like really loved watching TV, like really, really loved it. Like, I found that was my comfort, if you will, and lots of kids who growing up in the 70s and 80s would not have had that same passion, with like 3 channels of television. But, I love watching movies and all of that, which I'm sure a lot of people did as well. But then I also enjoyed plays and I enjoyed being in plays. So I enjoyed like the whole of that, the entertainment business. And then I think I left university. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And, what I felt I wanted to, I don't know. I knew that I knew what I didn't want to do, I guess is what happened. And so there was a lot of jobs which I said no to. And I think it was, well, I did a stint as at Tullet and Tokyo, like as like banking. So like I went and saw that. I went to and did an internship in an ad agency. There's a lot of talk of banking and business. My parents run a school, so they're teachers. So there was a lot of talk of teaching. That was I was a hair's breadth from that a couple of times. And then, yeah, I felt just drawn to it, and I don't know why. It was, and it was tough because I was quite old. I did a 4-year course at university, and I took a year off. So it was like 5 years or so after school. So I was relatively old when I entered the workforce. And then it took me a long time to land any kind of permanent jobs. It was a lot of a lot of freelance here, freelance there, a lot of reception work, a lot of tea making. And then it was tough. It was it was tough. I remember at one point, I always remember this. I remember being like 26, I think I was at the time, and being at I was at a reception at a radio station, and having to do all the franking for the envelopes, which means you took the envelope, postage, you do like 200 packages, and it was like late on a Friday night, and I was there. And I remember my girlfriend at the time walking in. She came in from her job and she was all dressed up, and she was with a friend of hers from work. And I remember just thinking, oh, what am I doing? This is so embarrassing. You know, I'm here like basically putting stamps on postage, but I that's what I wanted to do. So I kept going, you know?
Yeah, I feel like you literally, I mean, having known you when you started, you really have, like, you started in the bottom, you did amazingly, you know, you kind of really worked at it. Like, I didn't get the impression that you knew people or had like some amazing in that made it any easier. You've just literally, you know, done the work, done well. And
no, I didn't know anybody. I've literally, I mean, going back to your first question, like I do remember when I was about 8 years old being taken up to the BBC on a school trip, or 8 or 9. And again, the teacher's sister worked on the BBC breakfast. And we went up there and we walked around the back of the, you know, the cameras while it was on air. And I just remember just absolutely just mesmerized and, you know, being in the control room, like from an early age, 8 years old. So I was really young, just being fascinated by that.
Yeah. Amazing. So what do you think helped you progress and get better? Like any character traits, or just you really wanted it, or what do you what do you think helped you kind of?
I think it's hard work and luck, you know. It's the old adage. I really, you know, really worked hard. I did a lot of work at it, and I think that really helped, probably more than anything else. I just really committed to it. I made a lot of sacrifices early on in my career, and quite frankly later in my career. You continue to do that. You have to make sacrifices if you want to succeed, I think, and then a lot of luck along the way as well. And, you know, working with some phenomenal people, being lucky enough to be put in the same rooms as really fantastic people. And then obviously having brilliant mentors who would, you know, lift you up and raise you up. But I think the seminal kind of moment in my career in terms of luck and in terms of mentorship was when I you know, because I was in the UK until about, and I was working in TV for about 6 or so years between 1999 and 2005. But I wasn't particularly, again, I enjoyed it, but even then it was a tough business, and it was kind of the height of, you know, reality TV, and it was good, but I still wouldn't say that I was like firmly like, this is what I want to do forever. It was still a challenging business and financially challenging and really, really hard work. You know, I'd be again watching my peers making a lot more money, working a lot less. And then I came to the US, and that was the change in 2005.
How did you get out here?
I was very lucky. Again, it's just what I'm saying about luck. So it was the beginning of when shows were brought over to the US, and Strictly Come Dancing with the Stars here was brought over, but they didn't want to bring the whole team over from the UK. And because they were making the show still in the UK. I hadn't worked on the show in the UK, but they were bringing it over. And the executive producer of that show was a guy called Richard Hopkins, who was a huge mentor of mine and a huge advocate and supporter. And I'd worked on some other shows with him. again, this is what I say, hard work and luck. He'd seen me work, the show we'd worked on together weren't particularly big shows, but I really put the hours in, worked with him, got to know him. So he saw that. And he just thought that I was the right kind of person to be able to fit here culturally and to support. And again, I was lucky because in those days, people never really came over. So there wasn't this really understanding of like American media. Like now, if that happened, everyone on that show would be like, I am going to America because they want to be here. But then it was like, oh, this will probably go to the US and it will be one season and out. Anyway, I was asked to come over and I came over. Honestly, I came over because I wanted to come to LA. And I was like, yeah, you could have told me you're going to go and make whatever. But I was like, oh, yeah, I fancy that. Like, that would be great. Like, I mapped it out. I'll leave I think I left mid-April and beginning mid-April, I think I left. And then I thought, great, finishes on July 4th. And then I'll go and do a holiday in America for a few weeks and then get my next job. That was the plan.
And that was how long ago?
That was 2005. So that's
2005. Yeah.
20 years
I know.
ago.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. I definitely moved here, not because of the job. I did get a job here, but purely just to move to the States. And I think that was quite unusual. Like, it's always amazing to me that people didn't try and get out to the States, particularly. Mm-hmm. I feel like back then. And then I think on the other side, I don't know about you, but I definitely feel like having an English accent has been helpful. It's almost embarrassing to say that, but how did you find the difference? Because I mean, like for me, even just work wise, my clients are so different. They talk about and think about business so differently from Europe / England. How did you find the differences in culture in work, for example, in what you were doing? Even just the idea of what is entertainment and TV, is it the same?
I loved it. I found it incredibly liberating. I felt coming over here that I wasn't not judged, but I wasn't pigeonholed. I was English, but that was it. Yeah. I think in the UK, you're very quickly pigeonholed as this type of person or that type of person. And my personality, I guess I feel like more attuned. I don't know what's the difference in my personalities, but I definitely felt like in England, retrospectively, there was an attempt from my peers to keep me back and to be more, less optimistic about stuff. It was like, I don't know. It was, there's that attitude that I felt was in the media business there. But I've just felt here that people were just a lot more, first of all, I felt like it felt more like a business. And, sometimes in the UK, it just felt like, it was too small and it was, I don't know. It was difficult for me to sort of, as I said, in 2005, I was like, still like, am I going to stay in there? It didn't feel as settled as a US business. So I've really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed the people and, the ambition. And then of course there were differences, and I think there were sort of some real pluses with the UK industry. And I think one of those things was in the UK, you are asked to do everything. So you do a little bit of everything. So it really is, the 6 years I spent in the UK gave me a really brilliant grounding of skill set for all different parts of the job. Whereas in the US at that time, and I think it's changing, there was a lot more like this is the job you did. This is you had very strict lanes going in.
Yeah. And
so going in, it gave us all I came here with a lot of English people in the show. It gave us all a real advantage in our breadth of understanding of production. So it just things like that really helped. And I think actually what's happened is the two cultures, if you will, and two ways of working have really meshed really well now. And I don't think now someone moving from the UK would feel it's as different as, or from the US to the UK as it was then. But it was early days still. It was 20 years ago, so it was still relatively early days in the reality TV business then.
Yeah. No, I think I actually found very similar. It was different, like more business minded. And, you know, I feel like I spent my first year or two stopping myself saying, no, why would you try that? Because it's never going to work, kind of thing. Like literally.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you were talking about optimism. I do actually think of you as a very kind of positive, optimistic person. And I think looking back to when I worked in, you know, England, I think there is culturally, I think there's a big difference with the ambition and the optimism on the American side that actually is interesting. I'm hoping that's changing in terms of, you know, a lack of or more positivity coming into the English cultural and business mindset.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think so. I think the positivity is there. But again, I think maybe it's not even the difference between the UK and the US. Maybe it was just me. Like maybe it's just how I
think
felt.
you are very generally quite a growth mindset kind of positive person.
Yeah, and I think, but again, people are like that in the UK as well. So I'm not saying it's not there, but maybe I just coming over here, I felt more at ease.
Yeah,
being more expressive and I just enjoyed the culture of it. And I obviously love the place as well. I love LA. I like the US as a country as well. So that's, you know, I really enjoy the sort of the you know, being here as well. So that helped. But, you know, again, I still go back to the UK now, and I still we shoot there. I have a lot of productions there, and I work with a lot of UK producers and writers, and, you know, it's a phenomenal talent pool there.
Amazing. Any advice for young people trying to, you know, build a career in the entertainment industry? I feel like it's probably quite hard for all sorts of different functions. I
think if you've got a passion for it, then you should just do it. Like, I don't think, you know, I couldn't honestly tell you what to do or what not to do in terms of what avenues you want to go down. But if you are passionate about content creation, about reaching audiences, you should follow that. I got interviewed for Simon Cowell's company in 2010. I left Dancing with the Stars. I went to the X Factor then, and I met him. I had the interview, and he kind of asked me that question, like, why, you know, why are you doing this? What are you in TV for? And I didn't really think about it beforehand, but my reply was, look, I've just always wanted to entertain mass audiences. I just find it quite thrilling, the idea that, you know, I'm part of a show that is, you know, watched by lots of people, and it affects them. And that might be a bit narcissistic, I suppose, or I don't know, but I don't know what it is about it, but it definitely is what drives me at the core. I love that feeling. And, you know, being at Fox, even as a CEO, this idea that you've got this network and you've got people watching and you're entertaining them. And, you know, you get those moments when you're on a plane or a train and someone's talking about your show. You're at a dinner party and people don't know what you do, but they're talking about your show or something that happened. And it's just a very enjoyable feeling.
Amazing.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is interesting about the UK as a place to begin the business as well, the UK is fundamentally a place where you don't get into TV to make money. Like you go in because you're passionate, and I think that means that the people in there it's a vocation, right? Now the US is slightly different because you can really make a lot of money. It's such a much bigger market. But in the UK, I think you see a lot of people who have just got that passion, and it's a sort of, the secret is they do this whatever. You do this whatever the money, because you just love it so much.
Amazing.
So I'd say that, going back to your question, that's what I'd say to younger people. Like, if you love it, then you should do it.
Then just do it. What's been the hardest thing going from, kind of creating programs to running the company? Because that's, from a more creative role to the business side.
It's been very hard. It's, like you are, it's for many reasons. I mean, it's an unbelievable responsibility to the employees you have, for a start, right? So you feel that, and it's an unbelievable responsibility for the people who've employed you. You've been entrusted with something that's so amazing, and you feel that as well. And so you just want to perform for those people, right? And then, so that's kind of like, and I guess that's similar in any job. You could say you get a new job and you get a feeling, but this is kind of, felt certainly more intense to me at the time. Secondly, I think you have got the transition of leaving behind what you loved and still doing that, but in a different place, and entrusting other people with a lot of that responsibility and creative, day-to-day influence. So that's always hard, which has taken me, honestly, 3 years to really, I'm still maybe not there, but I'm certainly better than I was. And then, of course, there is the giant learning curve of what you have to try and do. So, you're those two things together, because you have to be very disciplined in not being drawn. But you are being, the reason I was brought into this job, though, was because of my executive creative background, right? So that is still expected. It's still expected that you're going to be someone who can direct a creative organization to find the content that is going to ultimately make us successful. So you can't lose that as a North Star. That would have been a better thing for me to say to a 5-year-old, by the way. Can I change my but next time. Okay. But yeah, this kind of, and then of course what happens over the years is, as you're learning all this stuff, and it's funny, I was saying to someone yesterday, it's like you do the work, you read, you learn, you talk to people, you meet people, you try and learn. And at a certain point, it's a bit like learning a language. At a certain point, you say something and you're like, did I just say that? That I just came out with that and I understood it. And it's like that when you're learning a language, you suddenly have this conversation like, oh my gosh, I just spoke French. That was great. And that's kind of the feeling. And then that happens. And when you get that, it builds your confidence. But I'm still like a million miles away. But there's, I don't know if that, but I guess I speak it, but I understand it is what I would say. Like I feel much more, I think I understand it. I feel much more comfortable, and that's a nicer place to be than when you're at the beginning. And there was a recognition, by the way, when I took the job, that obviously the people gave me this job understood that I hadn't done this before. So they said, look, we understand there's going to be a learning period.
Well, that's good. All right. Running out of time. So last quickfire, I promised your team that I would get you finished in time. So last few questions, these ones really have to be quick, because otherwise we won't have any time. So first one, favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show is obviously hard. So at the moment, I would say Love on the Spectrum is an absolutely brilliant show. Gilded Age as well.
Yeah.
From my own shows, and obviously, I'd have to say Gordon Ramsay's Secret Service is a really, really fun show. Yet another example of Gordon's kind of ability to reinvent and recreate, a cooking show. And then I just watched the first episode of the second season of Doc, which we are launching in a few weeks, and that is a really good show at the moment. There's a few there, but honestly, as I said earlier, I love TV, so I find it very, I'll watch anything.
What is your superpower that you think has most helped you be successful?
I didn't expect that question. I listen to people. Listen to people who know. Honestly, it sounds so cheesy, but I try and really learn and listen to people that I feel are better. Like I think of all the sort of mentors I've had, and when I say mentors, you think of sort of old people with white hair. They're not necessarily. They could be younger people. Like at the moment, I'm learning about AI and creators. My mentors in that space are in their 20s. But you just got to listen to them. You have to listen and learn and talk. And that's what you have to do.
Best career advice, worst career advice you've ever had?
Best career advice. I'm just going to take one of my dad's phrase. It's my dad's advice to me. And just, it's not about career. It's just get stuck in. Is what he said. I'm about to get, by the way, the fire alarm's going off.
I promise, only a couple more questions. Worst
career advice. Oh, yeah. Worst career advice was one person I heard talking about, like, starting a new job. It's like, go in there and you should fire someone straight away, and then you'll, people will fear you. Like, I've heard that said before as a thing, and I just think it's a terrible, terrible way to conduct yourself. Like, to sort of, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like sort of very hard-nosed business practices like
that. What character in TV are you most like?
Oh my gosh. Have you seen Rodney in Only Fools and Horses? No, that depends whether I'm at home or whether I'm at work. Who am I most like? I don't know. Let me think of someone. Not Homer Simpson. Bart Simpson.
Perfect.
I'll think of it. I'll come back to it in a sec.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I was going to ask you the last question. Tell me about someone or something you're professionally jealous of.
Okay. So professionally jealous. So this is professional, but it's also just jealousy because I think of life. I think, have you heard of Ikigai? Do you know what that is? So it's a Japanese theory that basically, true happiness is when you found this balance between what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what's going to get you paid, right? So when you find the thing that is at the center of that, i.e. you make a bit of money, you really love it, it's good for the world, etc. Yeah, you love it. All of that, that's where your Ikigai is. So when I think about like people who I am jealous of, I look at that. I look at those, and it's really hard to find because we all know people who are really happy with what they're doing. They're loving it. But are they getting paid much for it? Are they actually, is it doing any good for the world? Because we've got those people that we know might drop out and do that. But then you've got people as well who make so much money and they say they love it. But you're like, again, is it good for the world? Are you that good at it? So again, you get my point. So I think when I look at that and I think about people in the world who do that in media, the person I always think of is David Attenborough, right? So David Attenborough has, for over 60 years, I think 70 years nearly now, he has done something that he's obviously phenomenally good at, right? It is incredibly good for the world. He's bringing up, even in his 90s, like points to things that are obviously, global warming, destruction of rainforests, etc. So things that are incredibly important to the world. He's so good at it. I mean, he's just the GOAT, in terms of, natural history documentaries, his voice, his tone, the way he writes, it's so, so good. And presumably he gets pretty well compensated, or has been well compensated for it over the years. So like he is, to me, is someone I look at, and I am so jealous of that. I'm so jealous of that he has found all those things in one place.
That's amazing. Kugai?
Ikigai. You should find your Ikigai. It may be podcasting. Maybe
I'm going to look it up. Is that what you're aspiring to?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I think about all the time.
Amazing.
I'm always absolutely. You're constantly got to strive to find that thing.
Amazing.
And there'll always be a weakness to it, but it's trying to find the perfect balance of all those things.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much for listening. Please do take a look at some of the other episodes we've done too. You can find them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or on professionaljealousy.com. Get in touch if you have any questions, feedback, or importantly, anyone that you think I should feature on the podcast. A quick thank you to Anomaly Unreasonable Studios and producer Shimmy Boyle. You can follow me, Natasha Jakubowski, on LinkedIn or on Instagram. Please don't forget to subscribe, write a review, tell others about it. It'll help a lot.